Welcome to The Explainer. We hear the term dark web thrown around all the time, right? It sounds like something straight out of a movie. Hackers in hoodies, secret online markets. But what's the real story? Today, we're going to peel back the layers of the internet and dive into one of its most mysterious and honestly most misunderstood corners. So think about your daily internet use. You're on Google, YouTube, Amazon. That's all part of what we call the surface web. It's everything that a normal search engine can find and catalog. But here's the thing. That's just the tip of the iceberg. There's this massive, hidden part of the internet that's intentionally kept off the grid. And that's where we find the dark web. But what is it really? I mean, beyond all the scary headlines and the way Hollywood shows it, is it just a digital back alley for criminals? Or is there, more to the story? All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with what the dark web actually is, and you might be surprised by its government origins. Then we'll look at its most infamous marketplace, tackle some of the darkest myths out there, and see how it's turned into a new kind of battlefield for global conflicts. And we'll wrap up by wrestling with the big question at the heart of it all, this constant tug of war between freedom and fear. Okay, first things first. Let's get our bearings and define what we're actually talking about. Because look, if you don't understand the tech, you can't really grasp its impact, right? So in simple terms, the dark web is just a bunch of websites. The big difference is the physical location, the IP address of the computers running these sites is totally hidden. You can't just type an address into Chrome. You need special software like Tor to get in. And what that software does is give a massive cloak of anonymity to pretty much everyone involved, both the people running the sites and the people visiting them. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The origin story of this whole thing is probably not what you're thinking. Seriously, you might be shocked to learn where this tech came from. It was not dreamed up in some hacker's basement, that's for sure. Yep, you're seeing that right. The core tech that makes the dark web possible, it's called Tor, which stands for the Onion Router, was created and paid for by the US government. The whole point was to give their own spies and intelligence agents a way to talk online completely anonymously, without anyone being able to trace them. So how does it work? Well, imagine your data is an onion. It gets wrapped in all these layers of encryption. Then it gets bounced all over the world through a random chain of computers run by volunteers. At each stop along the way, one layer of that encryption gets peeled back, just to reveal the next stop. By the time your data gets where it's going, it's almost impossible to figure out where it started. Well, as you can imagine, that kind of power, total anonymity, very quickly led to its most famous, or maybe infamous, use, the online black market, a place where you could buy and sell pretty much anything, completely outside the reach of the law. And the poster child for this was the Silk Road. It popped up in 2011, run by this shadowy figure who called himself Dread Pirate Roberts. In just a couple of years, it blew up into this huge, totally unregulated market. It was basically the Amazon for illegal stuff. That is until the FBI finally managed to shut it down and nab its founder, Ross Ulbricht. And this is where you really see the core conflict, the huge disconnect. The founder, Ulbricht, he pitched it as this grand libertarian experiment, a place for what he called victimless crimes, totally free from government oversight. But the reality, it turned into a go-to spot for hard drugs, dangerous hacking tools, and even, allegedly, murder-for-hire schemes. I mean, the guy's stated mission was, well, incredibly idealistic. He actually wrote on his LinkedIn profile that he wanted to create an experience of a world without systemic force. It sounds noble, right? But that idea was completely disconnected from the very real, very dangerous consequences of what he actually built. But it goes way beyond just illegal markets. The dark web is where you find some of the most disturbing stuff on the entire internet. It's where that same anonymity that can protect a journalist or an activist gets twisted to shield the absolute worst of human behavior. So the question is, how much of it is true? Are all those terrifying stories we hear, are they real? Do these digital nightmares actually exist down there? Okay, so while a lot of the stories are probably urban legends, a little exaggerated, researchers have for sure documented some truly horrifying stuff. We're talking services that list contract killers, or even something called ruining a person services, where they offer to frame someone for a crime by planting illegal content on their computer. But the most infamous legend of all? Red rooms. The whole idea is just stomach-turning. An anonymous audience supposedly pays in crypto to watch someone get tortured or worse, live on camera. They can even make requests. Now, to be clear, no one has ever publicly confirmed that a real one of these exists. But the fact that the idea is even out there, it tells you everything you need to know about the depravity that people associate with these hidden corners of the web. And this quote, it really captures the raw shock that investigators feel. One cybersecurity expert talked about his first time on the dark web, way back in 2013. He stumbled on a video with this title. He said he literally couldn't watch more than 30 seconds. The screams were too much. It's the kind of thing it's hard to even wrap your head around.
But look, the danger here isn't just about individual criminals doing horrible things. The dark web has evolved. It's become a battleground for entire countries, a place where digital attacks can lead to devastating real-world consequences.
Think about it, that same anonymity that protects a whistleblower, it also gives perfect cover for state-sponsored cyber attacks. It lets countries mess with their rivals, steal top-level secrets, and even attack critical infrastructure like power grids, and do it all with plausible deniability. They can just say, hey, wasn't us. And this isn't just hypothetical stuff. This is really happening. We've seen a malware attack, which experts attribute to China, knock out power for millions in Mumbai. We've seen the Stuxnet virus physically wreck centrifuges in Iran's nuclear program by sneaking into a network that wasn't even connected to the internet. They did it with simple USB drives. This is where the whole idea of a cyber threat stops being abstract and gets terrifyingly real. So when you take all of this in, it really brings us to a huge fundamental question. And it's not just about the dark web. It's about the very nature of privacy in our digital world. And that's the great paradox here, isn't it? The exact same technology that can give a voice to activists and protect dissidents living under brutal regimes is the very same tech that lets the absolute darkest parts of humanity thrive. You really can't have one without opening the door to the other. Which leaves us with maybe the central question of our digital age. And man, there is no easy answer. Is the promise of absolute privacy worth the risk of the horrors it can conceal? What is the true price of freedom in a world that's becoming more and more digital every single day?